Our world is obsessed with numbers. GNP, GDP, population growth, and all these numbers that seem to govern our daily lives and direct us to where we may be or where we want to go. There are also numbers in the hard sciences, in the soft sciences, and in business. We talk about input, output, outcome, indicators of successes, etc. And when you are a student, you talk about numbers, you talk about grades. If you are a teacher, you talk about grading, and so on and so forth. In my view, our obsession with numbers is part of the reason why we are a very anxious world today. We want to have a grip on our present reality. We want to be able to control our reality by controlling the numbers. The man who approaches Jesus in our gospel and asks him, "Lord, will only a few people be saved?" was obsessed about numbers. He wanted perhaps to make sure, and perhaps that was his second question, to make sure that he is part of those few people who will be saved. Because ultimately, our obsession with numbers, with quantities, has to do with our desire to be saved. We deal with our insecurities by dealing with numbers. And so, this is what he does. But the answer of Jesus is very interesting. Jesus does not give him something quantifiable. Rather, Jesus talks about a quality of existence. Quality. When he says, "Strive to enter through the narrow gate. For many, I tell you, will attempt to enter but will not be strong enough." Narrow gate. This line indicates for us the way to salvation. Two elements: striving to enter through the narrow gate. The second element, before the master of the house closes the door and you are still outside the door. So you want to enter through the narrow gate, through the narrow door, and you want to do it on time. You want breathing space so that when the master arrives, you will be inside. Jesus does not talk about how many will be inside. He talks about striving to enter through the narrow gate. The word strive, agonizo in Greek, brings to mind the word agony. I agonize. Jesus had his agony in the garden. This verb, actually comes from the field of sport. Athletics, especially the race. And when we think of the marathon, we think of the Battle of Marathon, where A messenger was that 41 kilometers. And when he arrives to announce the good news that the enemies have been defeated, he falls down exhausted and dies. He was in agony. The word agony also brings to mind our boxers, for instance. The way they train, the way they run uphill, the way they slug it out even in practice sessions, the way they punish their bodies, they agonize, they exert effort, they are never passive. Agonize. Perhaps some of you have experienced the agony and the joys of running. I cannot help but recall, I think 11 years ago, after getting in tune for the last 6 months before that particular run, getting in tune because I haven't run for 30 years. I am an ROTC advanced graduate. Someone from the police, a very good friend of mine, egged me and said, "You still have muscle memories. Why don't you start running?" And so I did. And after 6 months, by the grace of God, I was in good shape. And that year, my friend organized what was called Takbo Maharlika. Takbo Maharlika was a run across the Philippines through the Maharlika Highway. It was a project of the Philippine National Police and the Dilaab Foundation, which I lead. It was a run of a lifetime. 7.5 months, 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 kilometers, 12 kilometers, but there were walks, 7, 2,300 kilometers. We began in Lawag, Ilocos Norte, and we ended up in Zamboanga City. You wake up at 3 in the morning, you do your routine, water therapy. I taught the policemen, there were about 7 of us, the core team, how to pray the breviary. And at 5 o'clock, we would be at the starting point at a certain mile post with perhaps 20 other people. The biggest number was 3,000 in Bulacan. Policemen, soldiers, barangay workers, priests, seminarians, some bishops, etc., etc., etc. 7.5 months, day in, day out. I know what agony is. But the fruits of such agony, the sacrifice of returning to the basics of fitness and prayer, that was our basic message wherever we went, was more than compensated for the sacrifices of sleeping at 9 in the evening, waking up at 3, running uphill. The worst one was in Pili, Zamboanga. I stopped, I just walked, and it was actually the last stretch. And I said, "Uy, naa naman rin na diha, anong ni hunong pa bang kay taas-taas to among dagan." Running through EDSA, running through the highway in Davao City. A very beautiful experience, but something that touched me very deeply in allowing me to be in touch with the struggle that Jesus is talking about. Strive, the struggle. Because prayer is a struggle. Trying to strive to live a good Christian life is a struggle, and we all fail. It's easier to take the easy way, the large door of the easy life, to be slothful, to take the path of popularity, the line of least resistance, the easy way out. St. Paul, in 1 Timothy chapter 6, he talks about fight the good fight of faith. Panlimbasog kamo sa mayong ang butong saning fight. Sa mayong pagpakigbisog sa pagtuo. Fight the good fight of faith. And he knew what he was talking about. In 2 Corinthians, I don't know what chapter, I think it was chapter 8. 40 lashes less one. 3 shipwrecks. Stoned by the Jews. Nearly killed. Abandoned by false friends. Fight the good fight of faith. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, he talks about, I have fought the good fight of faith. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Beautiful description of a life given over to God. We are reminded in this call to strive, to struggle, by the beautiful, very challenging lines of the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 12, our second reading. My son, do not disdain the discipline of the Lord, or lose heart when reproved by him. For whom the Lord loves, he disciplines. He scourges every son he acknowledges. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? At that time, all discipline seems a cause not for joy, but for pain. Yet later it brings the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who are trained in it. And he concludes, so strengthen your drooping hands and your weak knees. Make straight paths for your feet, that what is lame may not be disjointed, but healed. Matag usag yung kanato adunay nakaapan, adunay gitay flaw sa atong karakter, adunay gi kuwang, adunay gi pagkamakasasala. Nanginahalan kini og tibuok kinabuhi aron maarang-arangan ta, aron makat-on ta sa pamaagi sa Ginoo. Mo nang kung ato pang in English, we are here for the long haul. We are not here for a 50-meter dash. We are not here for a kilometer run. We are here for a lifelong marathon. And if there was one lesson that I learned from that Maharlika run, that you have to struggle every day. Maybe now physically kulang, but the lessons remain with me in terms of the spiritual. There is a line that I think I have shared here, but I will repeat it anyway because it's a very beautiful line from Saint Augustine. He says, Jesus guarantees that as long as we are fighting, that is a sign that we are not defeated. So if we fail, if we fall down, and we know that we have failed and we have fallen down, and then we strive to rise again, that is a sign that we are not defeated. And that the good spirit dwells within us. Kana nang mura na nagwala na lang, okay na lang ni mo na kuyaw. Kaya wala na resistance. Tabot, labo mo'y kaila. O basin ang tao nga inyong katubang sa samin, mauna siya. Kaluoy, pukaw, mata. And if death, Augustine continues, does not meet you as a victor, he should find you a warrior. Maharlika, warrior, noble. So that as we continue to live in this anxiety-laden world, obsessed with numbers and the false security of thinking we control reality by controlling the numbers, as we live in this world, we realize that it is not the quantity that we have, but the quality of our way of life, the quality of our struggle, the quality of our seeking to draw near to God, despite ourselves, our flaws. Thanks be to God.